Welcome back. President Trump says anyone who protests at the military parade in Washington on Saturday will be met with very heavy force. He said that speaking to reporters in the Oval Office yesterday, issuing this warning.
We're going to be celebrating big on Saturday. We're going to have a lot of, and if there's any protester who wants to come out, they will be met with very big force. By the way, for those people that want to protest, they're going to be met with very big force. And I haven't even heard about a protest. But, you know, this is people that hate our country, but they will be met with very heavy force.
So it's a feature, not a bug. Saturday's parade estimated to cost around $45 million, marking both the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army, but also Trump's 79th birthday. Joining us now, Democratic Congressman Jake Auchincloss of Massachusetts. Congressman, there's a lot of parallels that you're seeing between your experience having been in the Marines, serving at 29 Palms, training there. That's exactly what Marines on the ground in California are doing right now. I mean, what's your sense of the situation that we're watching in L.A.?
It's an authoritarian power grab. This president is manufacturing a crisis, claiming that Los Angeles is in, quote, rebellion, which is absurd, in order to test the bounds of his power over the military, and more precisely, to use the military as a police force. And right now, I'm thinking, Ali, not just of Los Angeles and the fact that it could be Chicago or Boston next. I'm also thinking about these Marine officers in 29 Palms. I trained there for 2 years. I was in command of an infantry platoon. Those boys are trained to be lethal. 29 Palms is the elite training ground for the United States military. They are training to destroy the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps in Syria or to fight off the People's Liberation Army in Guam. They are not trained to do de-escalation with fellow citizens in Los Angeles, nor is it necessary. The California state and local authorities are well equipped to uphold public order. If I were a Marine officer there, some first lieutenant, I'd be looking at this executive order and saying, I don't think it's lawful, but a judge hasn't ruled on it yet. And I'm put in this impossible situation of either disobeying what I have to at least presume is a lawful order until a judge rules otherwise, or going against my instincts on the Constitution. And that is such an unfair situation to put these young men and women in. And it's why Congress needs to act to reform these 19th century laws that give the president way too much latitude over posse comitatus.
Yeah, and that Latin phrase, I think, is one that we might hear a little bit more frequently. But for viewers who don't speak Latin, why is it relevant here?
There's basically two laws that are governing this situation. The first is posse comitatus. The law is from the 19th century, but the principle goes all the way back to the Magna Carta. And it basically says the president generally can't use the military as a police force. And that's a really good idea. We have 1,000 years of history that say, yeah, you don't want your executives to use the military as a police force. But there's exceptions to that law, and the Insurrection Act are basically the list of exceptions. And they are way too broad, and they are very poorly drafted. And Congress needs to get in there and say there's basically only two scenarios that you're allowed to use the military as a police force. Number one should be an insurrection, like the Civil War. It's worth noting, by the way, that when we actually had an insurrection on January 6th, President Trump refused to call in the National Guard.
I think that parallel is well underscored here.
Yeah, not trying to defend cops on Capitol Hill, but he is trying to beat up citizens in Los Angeles, right? Number two is if a class of citizens are being systemically deprived of their constitutional rights. So think about the civil rights era of the 1960s. The president federalized the National Guard to desegregate the schools. Yeah. Those are two exceptional scenarios. This does not qualify.
It also comes against the backdrop of a parade that we were talking about at the very start of the segment that's going to be happening here in Washington, D.C., that happens to coincide with the president's birthday, but is actually for the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army. It feels, and we started the show talking about this, like this week is meant to project the optics of Trump as someone who has the military at his fingertips, because he is, of course, commander-in-chief.
It's an expensive birthday party for an overgrown toddler, and it's an irony that I'm sure is lost on him, but the United States Army was born out of the Continental Army under George Washington. And one of the reasons that George Washington is such an important founding father for us is that he actually refused to use the military for political ends. His officers came to him in 1783 and said, we want you to usurp the Confederation Congress. We're sick of them. People hated Congress then, too. And he said no.
Some things don't change.
In the Newburgh Address, he said, I won't do it. I respect civilian authority over the military. one of the great moments in the history of Western democracy. And this president, who of course doesn't understand that history, is trampling upon that tradition.
We've also seen some Republicans, including the perennial vulnerable California Republican David Valadao, saying that he has some concerns about the ICE enforcements that we're seeing on the ground that are the root of this kind of action that we're seeing in Los Angeles County. Do you think that that concern could be parlayed into something legislative that could either close some of the loopholes that you're talking about or lead to something a little bit more comprehensive on the immigration front? Or for people watching who say, well, hope is dead for that, are they right?
Hope is not dead. This is the authoritarian playbook, is testing the bounds of your power. You see it in the democratic backsliding in Latin America and Europe, where would-be strongmen are saying, can I get away with this against this judge? Can I get away with this against the media? Can I get away with this with the military? And public pressure does matter. And when public pressure says no, and the authoritarian pulls back, they deplete their political capital and they become weaker, which is why these peaceable demonstrations against what the president is doing are critical. We need to see sustained public pressure, not just in blue cities and states, but in Republican districts, making clear to these members of Congress, we are going to hold you to account to uphold the Constitution. You swore an oath to the Constitution, not to Donald Trump.
Yeah, and our colleague Rachel Maddow has done an exceptional job of highlighting those protests. Even if they are small in number, they are popping up in interesting places from a political landscape. So I think this is one that we need to watch. And we're coming into the weekend where there's going to be those No Kings protests throughout the country in opposition to the military parade that we're going to see here in Washington, D.C. Democratic Congressman Jake Auchincloss of Massachusetts, thank you for your perspective.